Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. Charlie Munger, vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, has passed away at the age of 99. I am joined by my colleague, Matt Schifrin, who is the executive editor for Money and Markets here at Forbes, to tell us about what Munger meant, not just to Warren Buffett, to Berkshire Hathaway, but also in general to the rest of us. Matt, good to see you.
Great to see you, Diane. Thanks for having me. I think, Charlie was, he kind of kept a low profile within Berkshire, especially in the early days, but really he was transformative for Warren Buffett and for Berkshire Hathaway in terms of him getting Warren to kind of move away from his tried and true Graham and Dodd deep value stock analysis, which basically, told him that he needs to find cheap stocks, buy them really at a discount price, and then sell them when they were less cheap. Munger's kind of influence got Buffett to think about buying fantastic companies, excellent companies that are fully priced or reasonably priced, which is different from like a discount approach, kind of a bargain hunting thing. I think that there's a famous quote out there about Warren saying that he would find cigar butts, talking about stocks, and get a few more puffs out of it. And that was, you can never lose money selling a stock at a profit. But Munger was more about find a great company and hold on to it forever. So it was like buy and hold forever. The story we republished from 1996 talks about these as being one decision growth stocks. And that's really, if you look at Buffett's portfolio nowadays, especially now that Berkshire Hathaway is a behemoth, it's full of giant growth companies.
Yeah, Coca-Cola. The lollipop
Yeah,
strategy, like See's Candies, right? I love that.
Right.
That's a great cover story, by the way, because I loved, what was it called? The Not So Silent Partner. It was almost like sort of a coming out piece for Munger in some ways, because he had been, in some ways, underappreciated. Talk a little bit about the relationship because Warren Buffett's so front and center. He's the chairman, he's CEO, clearly the key decision maker. What role did Munger actually play in terms of the investment decisions? Was he more of a sounding board? Did he bring a lot forward himself?
Well, I think he was absolutely a sounding board, a consigliere. I think the Journal mentioned him as like the abominable no man. He's someone who Warren would talk to constantly, and was unafraid to be negative and to kind of be that devil's advocate for Warren's ideas, and it's worked out fantastically. And I think even though Munger was kind of a great investor in his own right, he had an investment partnership and did quite well, and was a brilliant investor. When it came to Berkshire, he was okay with kind of taking the back seat and not being out front the way Warren Buffett was, and he did fantastically.
The thing I love when I look at the Berkshire Hathaway, the annual meetings, was I looked at Charlie Munger almost as a triumph of common sense. Even some of the quotes like take the word EBITDA and substitute BS, or this, the way he referred to crypto, just this sense of not just the humor, but this kind of common sense, like if I don't understand it, I'm not going to do it, which in a way is the philosophy of Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, can you just remind us of this dynamic duo, what sets them apart from some of the other investment houses through the years, if that's the right way to put it?
I mean, lots of things set them apart. I feel like one of the things that set them apart was they really weren't transactional the way a lot of investment houses are, and it's all about the transaction and the deal. They were very careful. They did deep analysis, but when they bought big. And one of the other things that they really focused on, since we spoke about how the idea was to buy something and hold it forever, was the power of compounding. I mean, Berkshire Hathaway, Buffett, and Munger were happy to hold on to stocks and just earn those dividends, earn those that cash flow, and let it compound over the years. And that was really a powerful force. And I think that other firms, certainly, private equity firms, which might have a finite amount of time to get out of an investment, that's that's not as possible, but Berkshire is structured differently. The other really important thing that I think Munger had a really big influence on was the idea of using float to kind of leverage or increase your investment returns. So Berkshire Hathaway famously owns numerous insurance companies, National Indemnity, Geico, and insurance policyholders pay in premiums, but insurance companies only pay out sparingly when there's a catastrophe, a disaster, an accident. And so they use that float, which in a sense is like, it's a liability. The premiums are a liability in a sense, but it's like free money. It's like a kind of a,
don't have to pay interest.
Right. And so they use that to their great advantage. And I think a lot of other firms over the years have learned, wow, that's fairly ingenious to like own insurance company, own a reinsurance company, because you're playing the odds, and the odds are in your favor. And most of the time, unless there's like catastrophic disasters everywhere in every different sector. So that I think is something that Munger had a big influence on. This the idea of like of being patient, of compounding, of buying and holding on forever. Because as we said in the beginning, Buffett was more of a value guy. Find a mediocre company that's selling at a discount and buy it. When it goes up a little bit, make a profit. That was kind of a Ben Graham thing. Find, discounted, mediocre companies or stocks. Charlie was all about find an excellent company, buy it, even if the price seems to be full price, and hold on to it forever.
The other thing, I feel like it would not be Forbes if we didn't talk about their wealth, their net wealth. And obviously Warren Buffett became one of the wealthiest men in the world. Charlie Munger, of course, a billionaire, but not to the same extent. I don't know if you want to talk about why. I mean, part of it was, I'm sure, the shareholding, but also this philosophy he had almost of Benjamin Franklin was his role model, and the way he sort of lived his life, both from a philanthropy point of view. Give us some sense of how he used his wealth and what the net result of that was.
Yeah, I think Warren is, he's noted for like kind of piling up money, almost like a money hoarder, and and piling it up, and then eventually, I think he said his wife and his heirs would, donate it or put it to work, and then obviously he's got the giving pledge with Bill and Melinda Gates,
right?
But Charlie, is noted for really being philanthropic in his lifetime. He wanted to see his money being put to work. He donated to hospitals, he donated to Stanford University. And I think, he was not as, I think it's a different personality than Buffett. And I think you're right. Obviously, they had different shareholdings because, Buffett was the founder of essentially of the partnership that owned Berkshire Hathaway. And then he purchased Wesco, which was Munger's company. So there was a big difference in their shareholdings. But yes, Munger was a billionaire in his own right, a few times over.
So just maybe to sum up, Matt, I don't know if you take away any particular lessons from Charlie Munger. You obviously encounter a lot of these sort of titans of finance. I hate to say titans of Wall Street because neither of them have a lot of time for Wall Street. What sort of will you remember about Munger?
I feel like these, Munger and Buffett, you've got two really brilliant minds who had a very measured and unfrenetic process of choosing investments. I know Warren Buffett and Munger famously would read annual reports. Like, there's no trading mentality there. So I think that's an important thing, the importance of compounding. That's something that, I try to live by, and I try to teach my kids to live by in terms of investments. It's not about the transaction. It's kind of about finding something good and letting it compound. And then also, I think in particular with Munger, the idea that, you question conventional wisdom. He wasn't afraid to be contrarian. He wasn't afraid to call something out. You mentioned crypto. He was famously very negative about crypto, rat poison. And so I think that, right. So I think that to me is, it's kind of it's not just a philosophy for investing, it's a philosophy for life.
Great. Thanks for joining us. And of course, RIP to Charlie Munger. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Diane.